Morning update for Thursday. Paul Lemon here. Good morning. Is America headed for another economic crisis like we had in 2008? That's the question raised by our next guest, David Rothkopf. He's chief executive editor-at-large of Foreign Policy magazine. His new book, Power, Inc. And David, you say, forget about contraception, healthcare, and all. The only issue we should be talking about in this election year, the very future of capitalism. Why?
Because it doesn't seem to be working the way it used to. You know, GDP grew for the last 10 years, but job creation fell, social mobility fell, income inequality grew. Something's wrong. Tea Party thinks it's wrong. Occupy thinks it's wrong. They think the system's not working for us.
You point out that this country's success over a couple of hundred years was due to a healthy public-private partnership. David, I can't be near any businessman these days who doesn't complain about how government is doing them in. Help us understand how that's happening.
Well, if you've got too much government in the way of big regulation that doesn't make a lot of sense, or approvals that go very slow, you complain. But the canals and the railroads and the internet and the space program and the highways and, you know, a host of other things in U.S. history came when the government worked together with business. You know, the choice isn't good government, all government or no government. The choice is effective government or ineffective government.
How do we expedite that? How do we get government and private industry talking the same language to the same good common goal?
Well, the first thing we do is get so much money out of politics. The United States is the only country in the world in which our political system is entirely dependent on money. Shorter campaigns, federally financed campaigns, less lobbying. You know, try and get it so that the average citizen has some kind of input into outcomes in the political arena.
You point out that when the private sector overwhelms the public, we get what happened in 2008 with the subprime crisis. Can that happen again if we're not careful?
Certainly can. In fact, one of the signs of the private sector power is that we didn't get much regulation afterwards. They're more too big to fail banks today, and there's more derivatives activity, more risky activity out there in the global market, no global regulation at all of those markets. Things could blow up in the same way or worse.
You also write about the disconnect between the oil and gas industry and the environmental community. Is there a common ground there? Will those two sides ever get together for a common good?
Sure, I think that there is a possibility. I've talked to oil companies that say, yeah, we'll go. We wouldn't even mind paying some kind of carbon tax if we could get tax reform and we could get a clear idea of what the EPA is going to do down the road. So there are ways to get to deals here.
Meantime, the country's infrastructure seems to be falling apart.
Yeah, well, and this is a terrible thing. We haven't built, highways in a serious way since the 1950s in the Eisenhower administration. If we don't build highways, we don't build ports, we don't redo our air traffic system, people don't invest here. We've got to go and find a way to do that. And yet, right now you've got the Congress dithering over a mini version of a transportation bill.
So even if everything you've said so far, David, makes sense, we've got, as you point out, a Congress, Republicans that don't want a tax increase, Democrats that insist we have to have one. I mean, we're never going to get together on any of this stuff, are we?
Well, I think, first of all, I think we are. There are two possibilities. One, citizens wake up and they start demanding from Congress people less rhetoric, less ideology, and more effective results. Or two, we're going to have another crisis, and when that crisis happens, it's going to be bigger, and it's going to motivate us into those changes.
Citizens don't seem to be making those demands. They seem to be throwing up their hands and walking away.
I think that's our problem, and that's why I think the more likely path is another crisis, and when that crisis comes, we are then going to, our eyes are going to open just like they did after the Great Depression.
David Rothkopf, his book is Power, Inc. Thanks for being with us on the Morning Update.
My pleasure.